Oh, man. Last night was rough, folks. It was rough. Watching Stephanie White totally misuse Caitlin Clark, watching the team at times freeze her out. We had hockey substitutions again last night.
Body language does not lie. What we just witnessed on the court last night was an absolute operational disaster for the Indiana Fever franchise, exposing a massive rift in how this team is managed. When head coach Stephanie White pulls her generational star out of a game using hockey-style lines and completely disrupts any resemblance of offensive rhythm, it raises immediate questions about the underlying strategy in Indiana. The tension on the sideline was completely palpable, signaling that the franchise is facing an internal crisis that goes far beyond a single regular season loss. This is not just a standard coaching adjustment or a typical distribution of minutes. This is a systematic breakdown of standard basketball logic that has left fans, analysts, and the player herself completely baffled by the rotations. To understand how the situation dissolved into this level of frustration, we have to look directly at the numbers and the structural failure of the second quarter.
Again, the second quarter from hell comes back on the Indiana Fever. I mean, this is Stephanie White's MO. 27-16. Hilarious. Hilarious. Kelsey Mitchell, 33 minutes. 29 points.
The second quarter numbers paint a devastating picture of the current coaching philosophy under Stephanie White, allowing a 27-16 scoring run while forcing a half-court offense into an absolute slog fast destroys any chance of utilizing transition offense. Instead of letting a high-tempo playmaker push the pace, the offense has devolved into an endless cycle of 7 passes around the perimeter before settling for isolated individual plays. When Kelsey Mitchell plays 33 minutes to secure 29 points in a heavy isolation scheme, it completely changes the identity of the team. The statistics show that while individual stat padding might occur, the overall defensive structure collapses completely under this model. This approach essentially locks down the floor, forcing elite shooters into stationary roles where they are required to set screens rather than handle the ball.
We'll get to Caitlin Clark's substitution patterns. We'll get to Stephanie White walking up to Caitlin Clark and benching her when she's about to come in the game. Sophie Cunningham coaching the team last night. I mean, seriously, having to coach the team.
The visual evidence on the sideline shows an incredibly bizarre dynamic where players are forced to take coaching duties into their own hands just to stop the structural bleeding. Watching veteran leadership step into the huddle to demand basic communication and standard execution demonstrates a massive vacuum in actual leadership from the bench. When players have to actively coach themselves to focus on microscopic goals like cutting a lead to 5 points, the overarching tactical plan has clearly vanished. This breakdown reveals an environment where the rotation choices feel completely erratic rather than calculated. Substitutions are occurring with such high frequency that no individual player can establish an offensive flow or understand their defensive assignments. The resulting chaos on the floor manifests in historically poor execution, particularly when finishing basic plays near the rim.
For the Fever,
Just like narrow it down. Let's try to get within 5, keep chipping away, and that means good defense, one and done, and then let's go and let's execute on the other end. If you don't have the rebound, you got to get back, but we got to communicate. But we're thinking too big right now. Think about what we can do. Let's get within 5 points. 5 points. Come on.
The lack of basic floor communication and structural awareness directly led to an unprecedented display of poor professional basketball. By the middle of the third quarter, both teams had combined for a shocking 26 missed layups, a metric that highlights the absolute exhaustion and psychological frustration caused by these bizarre rotation patterns. When professional athletes are consistently missing wide-open looks at the rim, it points directly to a chaotic preparation environment. Instead of running a modern offense designed around a transcendent focal point, the system forces elite playmakers into standard decoy roles. This tactical choice completely neutralizes the unique court vision and deep-range gravity that completely revolutionized college basketball just months ago. The frustration has now spilled over from the analytical community directly onto the active game day roster.
guys, in the third quarter last night, a lot of us were keeping track. There was 26 missed layups in this game. In the third quarter, not even halfway through the third quarter, there were 26 combined missed layups.
The timeline of these substitution patterns reveals a criminal mismanagement of elite talent that violates basic player development principles. Pulling a starting guard out of the lineup after mere minutes of action completely destroys the physical warm-up and rhythm required for elite jump shooters. This approach leaves high-impact players simply trotting around the court without clear direction or structural support. This is not a standard minute restriction built on sports science or medical clearance. It functions as a complete administrative benching disguised as workload management. The decision to disrupt the lineup precisely when the team starts building momentum demonstrates a complete lack.
Sorry. Coach Anderson. This is Caitlin Clark being benched by Stephanie White when she's fixing to come in.
For weeks and come out and do this. That's just what she...
Right here. Right here. Stop. She's right there. Right here. Right here. She's standing there. She's waiting to come in. Nah. Take a seat. Take a seat.
The absolute low point of the evening occurred right at the scorer's table, where a visible confrontation took place before a scheduled entry, forcing a marquee franchise player to wait at the edge of the court, only to explicitly order them back to the bench is an unprecedented level of public disrespect. This tactical choice highlights an intentional effort to prioritize secondary scoring options over long-term franchise optimization. The numbers behind these specific rotations verify that the playing time is broken down into completely unmanageable blocks. No professional player can find consistency when their shifts are restricted to 2, 3, or 4-minute intervals before being drafted.
Good God. Stephanie White played Caitlin Clark with these awful minutes, which bench players, for the most part, this is coaching malpractice. 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 4 minutes. What the bleep? You got a transcendent shooter who is never in life going to get in rhythm playing that kind of bullshit. Playing that kind of a breakdown in minutes.
The statistical reality of playing a transcendent shooter in fragmented fragments means that offensive rhythm becomes an absolute impossibility. A player who relies on a precise feel for the game cannot operate effectively when they are constantly entering and exiting the lineup like a depth piece. The post-game remarks from the locker room confirm that this strategy is actively harming the team's chemistry and individual player confidence. When a star athlete openly admits that it is incredibly difficult to establish a flow under these specific parameters, the organizational problem becomes undeniably public. Despite maintaining excellent physical conditioning, the structural limitations placed on the floor completely neutralize their natural talent. This dynamic has forced a massive conversation regarding leverage and organizational control within the league.
By the way, Caitlin last night, Correlation put this up on this minute restriction bullshit. Quote, "It's just really hard when you're playing 3 minutes, sub out 3 minutes, 3 minutes, then you're on the bench," Clark said. "It's really, really hard to get in a flow. For the most part, I got good looks. Some of them went, some of them didn't. I probably didn't get to have a feel for the game as I usually do. It's like just really, really hard for me to play in that scenario, but overall my body feels great. So that's the positive I can take away."
The leverage in this situation sits entirely with the generational star, yet the franchise continues to operate as if they are managing a standard rookie asset. In the modern sports landscape, an athlete with an unprecedented global fan base holds the ultimate power over a franchise and the broader league economic model. If the internal management continues to treat elite talent with this level of administrative disregard, a public demand for structural change or an outright trade becomes an inevitability. The economic reality of the situation is starting to catch up with the franchise as fans begin to actively reject the product on the floor. Social media metrics show a massive negative ratio on official team statements, with thousands of supporters expressing absolute disgust with the coaching staff. This fan alienation is beginning to register in the most critical business metric available to the league: national television viewership.
She does. If she's unhappy, she needs to voice it, and loudly. Because let's be real, Caitlin Clark's got the leverage. She can use it. She's got the leverage. And if this franchise, if she doesn't, she needs to demand a trade and get the hell out of there.
The financial data reveals that when this specific superstar is mismanaged or kept off the court, the national television audience plummets by over 1 million viewers per broadcast. This is a massive economic reality check for a league currently celebrating its historic milestone season. The business model of modern women's basketball is tied directly to the visibility of its most popular figure, making these coaching decisions an absolute disaster for broadcast partners and corporate sponsors. The administrative choice to enforce these artificial limitations under the guise of rest, while the athlete publicly declares full physical health, points to an alternative agenda. This mismanagement has resulted in historical defensive failures that are rewriting the record books for all the wrong reasons. The on-court product has deteriorated to a level that is completely unacceptable for a franchise looking to build a championship culture.
I mean, seriously, and in case you have not noticed, the last couple of games that CC hadn't played in, 1 million viewers off the mark for nationally televised games.
The historical data confirms that the 2026 Indiana Fever have already allowed 100 or more points in 8 separate games this season, setting a catastrophic milestone in WNBA history. With 23 games remaining on the schedule, the current defensive system under Stephanie White is on pace to produce the worst statistical defensive efficiency rating of all time. This complete defensive capitulation proves that the current focus on rigid structural culture is completely failing to produce competitive basketball. This entire situation has turned what should be an incredible basketball journey into an agonizing chore for everyone involved, from the players on the roster to the millions of fans tuning in globally. The franchise is actively burning through its massive cultural capital by prioritizing outdated coaching dogmas over generational execution. The long-term stability of the
Most games with 100 points allowed in a season WNBA history. 2026 Fever, 8. Wow. Indiana has 23 more games remaining.
The broader implications of this organizational failure extend far beyond the borders of Indiana, threatening the credibility of the entire league's development strategy. When an organization chooses to prioritize individual isolation statistics and rigid, archaic substitution blocks over the clear layout of a modern, fast-paced offense, they are actively sabotaging their own commercial and competitive future. Broadcast executives and league officials are watching their record-breaking audience metrics erode in real time because a coaching staff refuses to build a system around its most lethal asset. The era of treating transcendent, game-changing athletes like standard roster pieces must come to an end if this franchise ever expects to lift a championship trophy. Think about the massive psychological weight this administrative malpractice places on an athlete who has done nothing but deliver historic success at every previous level of her career. To be publicly pulled back from the scorer's table, to be restricted to disjointed 3-minute shifts, and to be forced into secondary screen-setting roles is an absolute insult to her basketball intelligence. The franchise is essentially telling its largest audience that they would rather lose matches under their own rigid terms than win games by empowering their generational point guard. This approach defies standard sports management logic and directly threatens the long-term financial investments made by major corporate sponsors who signed on specifically to see elite, high-tempo basketball. The data does not lie, and an 8-game stretch of surrendering triple-digit scores confirms that the defensive philosophy is just as broken as the offensive rotation. You cannot claim to be building a sustainable championship-level culture when your squad is consistently non-competitive on the defensive end of the floor. The current system is actively exposing players like Kelsey Mitchell to extreme isolation loads while completely starving the rest of the roster of any meaningful offensive continuity. If Stephanie White cannot adapt her tactical playbook to mirror the fast-break realities of modern basketball, then the front office has an immediate obligation to intervene before the remaining 23 games of this 2026 season are completely wasted. So who is truly at fault for this historic operational collapse? Is it a head coach completely out of her depth trying to force an old-school system onto a new-age roster? Or is it a front office completely frozen by organizational inertia? You cannot look at a drop of 1 million viewers and a record-breaking defensive collapse and say that everything is fine. If you were in Caitlin Clark's position, would you continue to show public loyalty to a franchise that actively sabotages your rhythm on a nightly basis? Or would you use your massive cultural leverage to demand an immediate ticket out of Indiana? Pick a side, drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that subscribe button, and make sure to turn on notifications as we